Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this concluding panel discussion. I'm Elisa Francesconi, and I'm a part of the Thanks for Nothing team as a programming and production coordinator. And it is my honor today, and also a pleasure, to introduce you three amazing guests we have today. Jamilya Nurkalieva, you are currently the director of Tselini Center of Contemporary Culture in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Furthermore, you have been a leading program manager of art and educational projects of the Astana Contemporary Art Center and co-founder of the Festival of Contemporary Culture Arkaim in Almaty. Dilda Ramazan, you are a Kazakhstan-born art worker and a researcher, currently pursuing your PhD at Sorbonne Université. You are involved in a number of collective initiatives, all gravitating around the Central Asia contemporary art scene. In 2019, you co-founded Oyan Kazakhstan, a civil movement for political reform, of which you will speak later in the talk. And Yannick Lintz, since 2022, you have been General Conservator of Heritage and President of the Guimet National Museum of Asian Arts. Among other things, being a professor with long experience, in your career you have actively advocated for the broadening of heritage and art history education in schools. Many are your innovative and enhancing projects, among which I would like to mention the one of the exhibition Splendor des Oasis d'Uzbekistan, held at the Louvre in 2022. All the three of you women hold a profession or a practice whose testimony will sketch an image, perhaps introductory but nonetheless necessary, of what social engagement is in and for the Central Asia art scene. So the floor is yours, and enjoy the talk.
Thank you so much, Elisa. And maybe I'm going to leave to you to present your art center. So would you be able, and like Gael mentioned it, if you can get the microphone close, because otherwise we get this sign that we're like, okay. So can you talk about the scene in Kazakhstan and the art center that you lead? And also we know that there's a very strong political activism in your career and in the programming that you have set in Astana. So can you maybe talk about also a bit of the city itself? Because I'm not sure that everybody knows it perfectly well. So I think it would be interesting to have a bit of context of the political situation and the city, because the city itself, from an architectural point of view, is absolutely fascinating. And I know it has been incorporated into the program of the Art Center.
Thank you so much. I think I can start. I think we should go back to just the name of Tselini, because this is more about like the artwork I want to talk about later. Yeah, so Tselini is actually located in the city of Almaty, which is the ex-capital of Kazakhstan. And as you know, for now, the nowadays capital of Kazakhstan is Astana. So for the last 30 years, more or less. So Almaty remained actually as a cultural city. And yes, it is true. It's very interesting to understand that in Kazakhstan we have the largest artistic scene in the region, for our opinion, but it's not because we think that it's the largest because it's the best, but it's just because it's very related to the political and geopolitical situations that we had for the last 30 years. As you know, we're independent for 30 years, and of course, it's very common to say that we are located between two empires like Russia and China, and we've been affected largely through that neighborhood. But then we forget to say that Central Asia is actually not only the Stan countries, but it's just a larger region that we actually discussed yesterday. We had this conversation about how to map actually Central Asia and how to perceive this understanding, not through only the post-Soviet optic. Yes, so the Tselini is actually focused on enlarging and enhancing the intellectual communities. And of course, it would be very important to say that our institution is not actually about contemporary art is about society that we live, and that's why we became sort of a space more of interdisciplinary action. So we actually engage with a lot of scholars. We have a large and very big actually commitment for the publications. Some of them you have on this table. So we have a publishing house. So we have also online anthology where we put essays of local and international academics about contemporary art of our region. And as well, I think we have this very big program called Scholar in Residence. So we invite scholars to come over to Almaty to spend some time and to meet our communities, artistic communities, curators, activists. And this all around this biggest idea of actually being objective on what is happening, because you know our regime, you know that it's super complex situation with the language, with the Russian speaking communities. You know that we have Islam, and since many years now we're having like the tradition, the position of traditional Islam being reinforced in independent Kazakhstan. So we have this post-Islam situation as well. So then we have this, as I said, language situation, and even the alphabet is going to be again going back to the Latin, but in the year of 2025, and we have a huge debate on it, how the Cyrillic alphabet is going back to that, and at what state and how it has to be transferred to the Latin in 21st century. So of course, probably we have to say that Kazakhstan is also the place of many nations. So it's not only Kazakh majority of people living over there. So we have 124 nations living, and 75% of them, according to 2022, still speaking Russian. Yeah, and 85% understands that they're Kazakh and describes themselves as Kazakh. So this actually a lot of to digest, and also we constantly living in this understanding of what is our past, and of course the difficult past, we call it difficult past, and it's all this history, the colonial history of Soviet times, all these polygons and gulags, and Cosmodrome that is still not the place, and actually it's not owned by Kazakhstan and will never be. And of course this situation affects the artistic vision in our country, and of course in the same way, because we had very active decades of Soros and Goethe international organizations being operating during the first years of independence in our country. So I think it also underlined this large generation of artists being practicing in contemporary art and being critical. And I think that comparing to our neighbors, probably it gives us sort of like a freedom to be able to address the problems and reflect on them. So of course, this formed a sort of like a need to, you know, a need to work with institutions. So we have, for the last 15 years, we have emerged, I mean, on our scene, a lot of initiatives emerged, and they all been private, let's say. And so we understand that now the society and together with business are getting more and more aware and active about how to actually create the debate with the state. And I think this is a crucial moment for us, according to the situation, political situation of today as well, to be really responsible and aware of what we do. So that's why I think it is important to underline that, for example, that our institution is not usual in that sense as well. So we are very much looking into what is locally needed now, how to think about our past, but how also imagine our future. So it is a very difficult and long conversation. I don't know if I can borrow the microphone for more than 5 minutes so I can pass the word to Dilda. She can
Sure.
she can continue.
And do you wanna also have a look to the images that you that we had on the slideshow? Maybe
I think I
Just a
think it
quick
would be
look?
relevant if Dilda will continue on what
right.
was done through this organization that
Movement.
she co-founded, and then we can slightly actually, because I think
All
we
right.
will be both mentioning the Qatar event.
Sure.
So we can speak about it. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
can come back to this. Yeah.
So Dilda, do you wanna talk about the movement you created and how now you operate and developing it in a way from here, from the PhD that you're pursuing at the Sorbonne University?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to Thanks for Nothing for having me today, because the information I'm going to share today is quite sensitive, and it is not something I'm talking about often, because within Kazakhstan it is still quite dangerous to like openly discuss such things. And yeah, and the fact that we're not very many today, it really works perfectly for my presentation. So basically, yeah, I'm gonna be speaking about this civil rights movement called Oyan Kazakhstan, which means Wake Up Kazakhstan, that I co-founded in 2019. But I'm not its leader, because we actually think of a movement as collective horizontal initiative. So there's no one leader. There are just founding members, and there are some others who joined us later. So maybe we can move to the next slide so that I explain you basically how it all emerged and in which context. So this, just so that you know, these are two presidents of independent Kazakhstan. On the right, you have the first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, and on the left, you have the second one, Qasım-Jomart Tokayev, who's the actual president. And basically, Oyan Kazakhstan as a movement emerged in a context when the first president resigned in 2019 and passed his power to the second one. Can we move to the next slide, please? So it happened 4 years ago, in 2019, in March, and the very first act that happened after that, when there was the switch, completely unexpected switch of power, let's say from the first president to the second one, our capital, Astana, which is today called Astana, was renamed, and it changed its name from Astana to Nur Sultan, which is actually the first name of the first president. So of course this provoked a lot of protest among the population, because no one asked the population if they actually wanted the capital to be renamed. Anyone was happy with that. And of course, no one was happy with that. So people started protesting, started expressing themselves. And also I think it was an interesting moment because for the very first time, well, I can speak for myself. I was born in an independent Kazakhstan. And the whole my life I've seen the same person ruling the country. And when this resignment happened, I think we all had this moment of hope, maybe that now we can do something else, and now there will be a new person ruling the country, and so that a change is possible. And so within this context, Oyan Kazakhstan was created, and it was actually created through the action that we're going to see on the next slide. Here you can see a banner on which you can read "Отправда не убежишь," which is it can be translated as "you cannot run away from truth." And basically this is the action that was planned by myself and some people I know within the context of Almaty Marathon. Basically it's the biggest marathon sportive event in Central Asia. And we knew, since we had like a very important message we wanted to deliver, we were looking for a platform that would provide great media coverage so that we can be heard and seen. And so there was this action, which was not, of course, allowed by the organizers of the marathon. And just for holding this quite innocent thing, some members were detained. Some people participating were detained. Others were just, let's say they were fined. Yeah, they had to pay some fines for doing this. But paradoxically, somehow this triggered, let's say, a solidarity movement among youngsters who could, through this act, see that actually they were not alone, and they were all wanting the same thing, which is just political rights, right, for population. So everyone was looking for change, and because of the fact that some of the people were detained, we actually gained a lot of visibility through this detainment, and we somehow managed to gather like-minded people who were all youngsters looking for the ways to express themselves politically, looking for the ways to participate in social processes, and finally be heard. And so that's how Oyan Kazakhstan was created, basically, because we were all attending these court hearings. We were all talking and discussing things through which we could collaborate, and that's how we basically found our community, which today comprises many different people throughout the country. So it's decentralized. We don't have like the center. We don't have the office. We're not legally registered because it is also quite risky to register legally. And yeah, we operate in different cities. And maybe the last picture for today. This is basically how different members look. You can see these are very, just very young people from Kazakhstan protesting. This is one of the first actions we did in 2019, demanding for the reform of, for parliamentary republic and let's say annulation of the status of the president. So basically, yeah, these are just youngsters wanting to do something within the country. And it's important to say that as representatives of my generation who grew up in a globalized Kazakhstan, they feel themselves part of the, just, I don't know, like part of a global population. So they don't feel the barriers. So they see that like some political freedoms exist in other countries. So why cannot they exist in ours? So basically that's how it all emerged. And yeah, the movement still exists. Of course, everyone's growing old. But there's luckily some other members joining. So yeah, that's that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, do you want to continue?
Yeah.
With the
yes.
With the programming that we've seen before.
Yes, actually, when we were saying that we're not actually really focused on contemporary art, I mean, it's not our main duty, but still, of course, we are working with a lot of Kazakhstan and region artists, and actually, it was, I think, for our opinion, it was really important to talk about the projects that actually never been exhibited, but it's been commissioned by our institution after the tragic event of the January. We call it Kantar. And so, as you know, and as Dilda mentioned, when it was this transition. Oh, yeah, sure. Do you hear me? I don't know. Okay. So actually, this event happened in Kazakhstan when this transition actually been made, just right after, and it was becoming like a huge protest in the region of Zhanaozen, and then it was just about complaining about the gas price, and then it turned out that the city of Almaty, which is, as I already mentioned, the cultural capital and has I think the most amount of the young audience and just population that is really actually active to express their opinion. They all went to the streets, and at one point it became a disaster, and many people, many people being unfortunately killed, and this number of people that we lost, more than 300 people. So it is actually the largest killing in this century for us. And so, of course, as an institution, we also had to reflect on this topic, which is actually an endless topic now for our society, and it's a never-ending conversation and mourning. But it was important to probably address in a form of the aesthetic artwork to understand how do you feel and understand this tragedy. And actually, we commissioned 4 artists. It was Ashat Akhmedyarov, Almagul Minlibaeva, Seyit Atabekov, and Sarlebek Begutaev to create their reflection on what happened with us at that moment. And actually after that we had a very interesting debate on actually the ownership of the tragedy, because at the moment it was very difficult for people to say, okay, so you've been not there, so you cannot talk about this, or you will not there, so you cannot produce an artwork on, or maybe just even think about that. And then we all came to a sort of like conclusion and understanding that anyone can actually think about that and reflect on this tragedy from their own position. If you are an activist, you do that through your activism. If you're an artist, you do that through your art. And it's like, it's up to you to take this voice and to be heard. But in our position, it was really important to reflect. But due to this actually political situation in our country, we never had the chance to expose this exhibition. But I wanted to talk about this as a project that never happened, but it is existing in form of the artworks that we have. So here you can see that during these protests, the center, the mayor house being actually burned. And this is the photograph that Ashat used to put into the fabric. And so this is a textile artwork that actually printed, and you have a second layer after it, where he burned it with, how do you call it, poroch? Gunpowder. Yeah, and you can move to the another slide. So he used this was a very, very massive photo that have been like viral everywhere. So you can see the guy with the flag of Kazakhstan, and so he's like in a sort of like this crazy fog, because everybody was who is remembering all these days, they understand that these days been completely foggy because there was a lot of this bad fog in the city, and actually, so he produced this photograph as well, and also he used the gunpowder, so you can see, so you can understand with these layers, you can understand actually where it's happening in a way. So you understand that it's not happening somewhere in the West, so you can really see that it's somewhere in the Asia, or maybe Central Asia, so you can kind of like guess, even if you don't know why it is like this. So this is also another artwork that from this series, that is also the photograph of this event that he actually put on this textile. There is another, this work is actually, one of them is exhibited within this exhibition with Slavs and Tatars, so you can see that on the second floor. If you're interested, you can go and have a look. And also another artwork that have been traveling a lot is the next slide, please. Is the work of Almagul Minlibayeva. It's called AI Realism. So she actually also took the pictures from the internet of all the events that have been happening these days, and she put them into collaboration with AI, and so she got this completely distorted images of like of the tragedy, so you can kind of like guess what it is, and of course you can see, but then you understand that it's not real, but also it's sort of real. So this artwork been participating in many exhibitions for this moment already all over the world, and so it's kind of like the projects that actually never happened in Kazakhstan is actually traveling a lot in the world, and for us it's really interesting to see how these artworks perceived by different curators and understood, because I think it's crucial for us to know if we are participating in artistic production, then the artworks reflect this moment, and so maybe one day we're going to have a chance actually to have it and to be able to speak about that publicly in our country as well. So this is one example, and this there was also a video artwork that I wanted to show you. It is this a very actually famous in Kazakhstan video. It's called Save Bozhara. It's another form of the activism, but the same artist actually. So have been acting as a protector of the natural park in Bojura in Mangistau region, when the developer wanted to actually to build their resort. And so everybody in the media and our society, our civil society, been commenting this action, and everybody was against that development would happen in this national park. And so he produced this costume, and together with eco activists, they went out to the streets, actually to the Ministry of Ecology at in Astana. And this is a video documentation of this performance. And the outstanding, so on this flag you can read, so they say Bojura Saktaek, so save Bojura. And this is actually the recording of how many minutes it would take the police to detain him. And so this is actually about the fact that he'd been detained, but if you can see this video documentation that have been shot by another actually journalist and activist, Timur Nusimbekov, this is a very interesting moment to see how they've been disappointed, how they've been trying to actually I think it could have happened in 1 minute, but then it took him, the video is 11 minutes. So it's 11 minutes of him being protesting as shaman. But the amazing thing about this, that actually the development of the resort idea actually been stopped. So the idea of that, actually, I think it was one of the best examples to show that society actually can talk to the state or to the business, and then having this forced, not forced dialogue. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And since maybe we can have question with you, because I can tell that you have many connection with what we were talking. No? Yeah, seems so. So maybe I'm gonna give the mic to you. So Yannick Lintz, you're the president of the Guimet Museum, and as an art historian and curator, you were also able to show the Kazakhstan art scene throughout many exhibitions. So do you wanna say a few words about the exhibition you have made, and today the way you have put Central Asia also on the map with the Guimet Museum?
Thank you for your invitation. In fact, about Kazakhstan, I'm fascinated by what I have just seen, and I should say that I didn't organize until now exhibition on Kazakhstan. I was more focused on Uzbekistan. And maybe just to give you an overview, because here it's Tehran. My professional story starts in Iran and goes now to China. And between Iran and China, there is Central Asia. Of course, as a curator at the Louvre, that means in the biggest museum in the world, and now in Musée Guimet, that is one of the most important Asian art museums in Europe and in the West. My job is, of course, to be an art historian, but also to do diplomacy. And it's maybe what I prefer in my job, is creating when everything is impossible between two countries or two areas, between West and East. I could see that the idea to develop cultural dialogues is the way to maintain the link and to build maybe also this possibility to open minds. Of course, I'm not naive, I'm not a politician. I had, as director of the Islamic art department, and even now, I had to work with a lot of countries that are no democratic countries. But that's why I'm happy to try to develop those cultural relations between such country, because I think that museums can have a sort of power, soft power, that make things slowly changing. What about Louvre in Tehran? Of course, today when we see the situation, it's impossible to imagine this. But it was possible in 2018. I remember it was before the signature of the nuclear accord. It was in 2015. I was then in Burara in Uzbekistan. I had an email from Iran saying, you will be the first French that will have a visa to come and see us, to open again the door with West. So I went by car, train through Bukhara, and then for Turkmenistan, and then Mashhad, and by train, night train, I arrived in Tehran in front of a very official delegation, cultural delegation, saying, okay, we are sure that the signature will take place in 1 month, so we would like you to be our ambassador to open this cultural dialogue. And so I was convinced, because Iran is my second country, more or less. I study Iranian art. I have a PhD in Iranian art. I speak the language, etc. So I could convince the Minister of Foreign Affairs in France, the Minister of Culture, of course, the President of the Louvre, at this time Jean-Luc Martinez, to give me green light and to say, okay, we have to bring them dreams for all the people that are in Iran and will never go out of the country. And the Louvre, of course, as a universal museum, can have this power. So we did it. I don't tell here all the details, but you see, of course, it was an official opening with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the French one, the Iranian one, the National Museum. But I think my best souvenir, even now, of course, I'm still in contact with all those people now, even if as a French civil servant, I cannot go there. But we open people to dream, and I have still the video where we see thousands and thousands of Iranian people in front of the museum, just in the queue, waiting to see this impossible dream of universal art. So I don't know, we never know when we are in a museum what will be the real effect of visit in a museum. But I'm sure that we could give the possibility, of course, to demonstrate that we can have a cultural dialogue on a diplomatic point of view, but also for all those, there were 3 million of visitors in this exhibition. So sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I just think maybe when we see or when we hear those awful things happening in Iran, I just think, oh, maybe someone, a young lady, a man, thinks on what he have felt during his exhibition. So this was my story with Iran. And of course, I wanted to go on in this idea to create this dialogue between East and West. Of course, when I was at the Louvre as the director of Islamic art, this was in a context of Islamism and Islamophobia. So this is Central Asia for me, Uzbekistan. And it was very interesting to hear you, because more or less it's the same situation. Even if I started the project with Uzbekistan in 2014, the president was at this time Karimov. And I always wanted to do the project under Karimov, because I always was convinced that after Karimov it could be a revolution, and but not a positive revolution, but something maybe very wrong. So my hope was to do it with Karimov, but I did it 9 years later. So it took me 9 years to build this. Building such a project means, of course, building relations with the colleagues, with the director of museums in Uzbekistan, knowing the collection, but of course it's also to build diplomatical relation. I should say that what was positive for me, and I was with your ambassador last week, and I just in my mind thought maybe it's Uzbekistan 12 years before. In the idea, of course, the interest for the political level in Uzbekistan was they decided for an economic issue to open to tourism. But this is very interesting for such country to open when the strategy is to open for tourism, because this means that they have in their narrative to accept the Western point of view. And so we could build this narrative about Uzbekistan heritage. There was no contemporary art, because we are in the Louvre, and in the Louvre you don't have. So I don't want to be too long, but it was very interesting, in fact, to see how in 9 years in this project, how minds on different level in Uzbekistan could be more open. And I follow now all what happens on a cultural point of view. I'm not here to do politics, of course, I'm not naive also, but I see they are now in the Biennale in Venice on a very official with the Foundation for Art and Culture. You know maybe the name of Gayane Umerova. Behind there is the daughter of the president. Of course, we can imagine it's politics, but I see the effect on art, culture, on the young people. They bring now Japanese, Tada Ando will build a new museum there. They have now a symposium about modern architecture in Tashkent yesterday and today. So it's really going on something very open, very international, and of course I'm sure at least for the artists it's better now. And so just to finish, of course China is for us our main subject now, because next year we will celebrate or we will be part of the celebration of the 60 years anniversary of the relation between France and China. So I was in China 2 weeks ago during 3 weeks, and I wanted just to show this, not to be a star, but it was funny to know that the national CGTN TV came from Beijing to Shanghai to have this 20 minutes interview that was seen by 38 million people. And this is soft power. And it was, and tomorrow morning I have CGTN, the director, coming from Beijing to Paris in the museum. And the journalist was really very good, with very clever questions about what is, and Musée Guimet is this, it's a European vision of Asia. It's not Asia looking at Asia. It's the heritage of the European fascination for Asia. So he was really asking a lot about what is our vision. And of course, I had always to stay, to be careful in my answers, because it's diplomacy also, but in fact, my answers were artistic and cultural. But so this is my new challenge, and it will be a challenge, I can tell you, because in all our, Claire from the Musée Guimet is laughing because she guessed. We will have, for instance, several exhibitions about Chinese art from the past, from the present, but the narrative, I can tell you to, of course, as soon as they send artworks, they want to control all the narratives. And I try to be diplomatic, but I need also to be academic. In Musée Guimet, we have to tell the truth, or an academic vision. It's maybe not the truth, but an academic vision, not a political vision. So imagine when we have to develop an exhibition about the Tang dynasty. So this dynasty, of course, of the Silk Road going to Central Asia. My vision is to say, what is interesting with the Tang is that they brought a lot of ideas, of artistical ideas to the Tang, like the gold work, etc. But the Chinese, my colleagues, say, no, but you know, we had it before in China, see, so we brought it to Central Asia. So this is the narrative we will have to build together with each of us, our vision. So, okay, that's it. It's so I'm a sort of course, I'm a curator, I'm an art historian, but as a president of a museum, of a national museum, I'm also a diplomat, but an optimistic diplomat.
I see. Thank you very much, Yannick, for your presentation. And maybe we just have a few minutes left. So do you want to say a few words about now your work in Paris? Because you were a bit brief about that, but I'm sure there is many more to say.
Yeah, sure. I mean, today I'm speaking more on behalf of this movement, but this is not the only identity that I have, because I've been working as a curator since quite a while now, and I pursued all my higher education in France. So I did my licence in Strasbourg in art history. I then did my master's here in Paris. And after I decided I just worked for a bit, continued working always with Central Asian artists mostly, because for me, I think it's one of the most important things is to promote the art scene of the region. And now I'm here doing my doctorat. So it's like the only beginning. But my doctorat will be about Central Asian contemporary artists again. So I'll be traveling quite often to Central Asia, but also while being here. So for me, it's like maybe the ideal way of existing between these two parts of the world, because this was something I always wanted to do. But it's like another part of what I'm doing. It has nothing in my professional projects. I don't often bring this subject of the social movement. It's like two parallel, let's say, activities. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you so much for this panel, and because you've really touched my secret dimension. The secret dimension means like the people of Great Stepper fighting with the secular world. Thank you so much, you both, and you. And yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing in the 21st century that in the modern world, the ladies, educated, beautiful, they are so brave, inspired me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, I wouldn't ask the question, but maybe it is relevant. It's true that a lot of women are the activists. So would you comment that, or do you think it's just a...
Yeah, completely true for Central Asia. I think that is one of the greatest particularities about our scene. It's that it mostly represented, wherever you're looking actually, the art scene represented by women mostly, because there are women running art institutions, women gallerists, women artists are much more present than male artists actually. And when you're looking at civil rights sector, let's say, also mostly, there are mostly female voices, and it's of course something that makes me very, very happy, yeah.
Do you want to say a few words about the programming you're gonna develop, and what you expect from the upcoming months or years in relationship with the government and the activist program that you have?
I think that our main activity is being awake and being in a very on a very regular relation with everybody and dialogue with all of us. And I think that this is our actually major agenda. And of course, we cannot say that one topic is more important than the other, and then that's why we choose this one instead of the other one. So we kind of stick to the idea that we have universal questions and problems that we all have together, and we have to deal with them. But of course, if you look at them in terms of like the perspective of where we are, of course they can have different kind of shapes and problematics. For example, ecology questions or questions of gender or faith, they are very much affecting us, and we are questioning ourselves not only about our past but also about present. And I think that the role of the institution is, for my opinion, is to try to take this position of being completely transparent and being able to provide and accumulate the dialogue of the society, so in order we can speak out and address the questions that we have together and maybe achieve sort of like an ideal scenario of how to move forward, because it's not a distracting and a disruptive practices. It's all about unity and getting closer and responsible.
Perfect. And maybe, wait?
Maybe we should just mention that Diana was not able to be here.
Right. Yeah, due to visa issues, that was a problem. So yeah, so exactly.
Which is
so
also underlines very well the region where we live.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is what we understood perfectly well. And this is also why we should abroger. We should just get rid of borders. That's a great plan. I know as a diplomat you cannot say that, but I'm not a diplomat, so I will say it. But also, no, I know you wanted to add something, but maybe another question to the response you might give. So now, as you're the president of the Musée Guémet, what are the next programs or exhibitions that you were talking about, the dream, in a way, that you brought to Iran? So, and as a diplomat and using culture as a soft power, what would you like to bring to the programming of Musée Guémet?
Thank you for the question. I will tell you, but just what I wanted to say, that if I decided last year to be candidate at this position of president of Musée Guimet. I didn't dream about this 5 years before, but I thought that, of course, we are all witnesses of what happens, and it's a very strange time, I think, where, of course, all tension between West and East will go further, and I thought that it was the time to become president of Musée Guimet, to use this museum as a real entrance door for European people to Asia and an entrance door for Asian people to Europe. So what does it mean? Come and see. But just in a few words, as I told you, next year we will have a Chinese year. But that means several exhibitions devoted to Chinese artists from the past and from the present. And for instance, I wanted really to develop the present. In this museum, we are very lucky to have a lot of heritage, but it's a museum of today and tomorrow. I want really that the young people can be attracted by this museum. So I asked to artists from Shanghai to imagine something monumental outside of the museum. So you will come, but next year Musée Guimet will be red on his facade. But this doesn't mean that I will just be the ambassador of the political celebration. I want to celebrate the artists, not the country. But so many other programs in the years to come. And of course, Musée Guimet is not only China, but we have a wonderful project in 25 with Cambodia, even Cambodian artists, refugee, and with Japan, and going from the mangas to Okuzai. So this is another way to go from the present to the past, and 26 should be an Indian year, because India is really also a place to go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we are now running out of time, and some of you may have to leave, by the way. So thank you so much for being here, and I think all of you put this out very clearly, that culture and women, I would say, have a strong role to play into power and politics and to democratic movement in so many countries. Actually, like the round table before, we also discussed that from a Vietnamese point of view and the role of the artist as well, and in Taipei. So yeah, globally, we can state that you're all taking a part of this. So thank you so much for sharing this. And so this is the last conversation of the day, but it continues tomorrow without us for Arge now. So the fair, I think, is open until 8, so you can still enjoy it. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.